I saw my wife touch another man's hand through the fog glass of a diner by the Greyhound station at 9:47 on a Thursday night. That was the detail my mind kept holding on to. Not the yellow envelope between them, not the folded bills she slid across the table. Elena's hand, small and steady, resting over his knuckles like she was comforting him, promising him something, or saying goodbye. I was still in my work jacket, the navy one with elevator grease darkening the cuffs. My truck idled across the street, wipers dragging rain across the windshield in tired arcs. Inside Millie's, the neon sign painted everything red, and my wife sat in a back booth with a gray-haired stranger I had never seen in our 11 years of marriage. I should have walked in. I should have said her name. Instead, I sat there with my coffee going cold in the cup holder, feeling 12 years old again, watching someone I loved prepare to leave. My name is Marcus Vale, and for most of my adult life, I have made a living fixing things that get stuck between floors. That sounds like a metaphor because it is one. I work elevator maintenance in Pittsburgh, mostly old buildings with stubborn doors, tired cables, and residents who press the call button like the machinery might respond better to anger. My job is not glamorous. There are days I come home smelling like metal, dust, and old pennies. But I know what I am doing. I like machines because they do not lie. They fail for reasons. You find the reason, fix what can be fixed, and do not take it personally. People are harder. Elena used to say that was why she married me. You're the only man I know who can sit in silence without making it feel empty, she told me once. We were eating takeout on the floor of our first apartment because the couch was still being delivered. I remember her twisting noodles around a plastic fork, her hair clipped messily on top of her head, her bare foot resting against my boot. Back then, silence between us felt like a room we had built together. By the time this happened, silence had become something else. We lived in a narrow, rented place on the south side slopes, where winter turned every errand into a negotiation with gravity. Our kitchen had one window facing a brick wall, a refrigerator that hummed too loudly, and a little radio Elena bought because she said mornings needed a human voice. She taught GD classes at a community center 3 nights a week, mostly adults who had been told too many times that their chance had passed. I was not as generous. I believed in punctuality, maintenance schedules, and showing up when you said you would. That last one was my oldest religion. My father, Victor Vale, left when I was 12, not dramatically. No slam door, no big speech. He kissed the top of my head one Tuesday morning, gave me a wheat penny from 1944 because I had started collecting coins, and said, "Keep that one safe, Marky. It's got history." Then he went to work and never came home. For years, I kept the penny in a blue lunchbox with a broken latch. Later, when the lunchbox rusted at the corner, I moved the coin into my toolbox. I told myself it was just habit. But every time I reached for a screwdriver, I saw that dull brown circle and felt the old question underneath my ribs. What was wrong with me that made leaving easy? Elena knew all of that. The dates, the shape of the absence, the way my mother worked double shifts and stopped saying his name unless she was filling out paperwork. Elena knew I did not talk about him because talking gave him too much room. She never pushed. That was one of the ways she loved me. So when she started keeping secrets, I did what men like me do. I noticed everything and said almost nothing. It was faint, easy to dismiss. Tobacco smoke, black coffee, damp wool. Elena did not smoke. Nobody at the center smoked inside anymore. But one Tuesday night, she came home after class, hung her coat on the chair, and that smell followed her into the kitchen. "Long night?" I asked. She kept her back to me while she filled a glass at the sink. "Yeah." New student. Complicated intake. That was possible. Her work came with complicated people and complicated paperwork. I kissed her cheek and she leaned into me for half a second, then pulled away to rinse the glass though it was already clean. 2 nights later, I found a parking receipt in her coat pocket while I was sorting laundry. We had a rule. Not even a rule, really, just the ordinary mercy of marriage. Check the pockets before washing. That night, I pulled out a damp little square of paper and nearly tossed it before the words caught me. Greyhound Station Lot B, 8:12 p.m. I stood in front of the washing machine, the drum open, one of her sweaters hanging from my hand. She had told me she was at the community center until 9. The center was 12 blocks in the other direction. When she came into the basement with a basket of towels, I held the receipt up. "What's this?" Something moved across her face. Not guilt exactly. More like a door closing. "It was just something for work," she said. "At the bus station?" "Marcus, I'm tired." It was not an answer. It was a warning. I heard both and chose the wrong one to respect. I dropped the receipt on top of the washer and let her climb the stairs ahead of me. For the next week, I tried to be reasonable. I told myself Elena had earned trust. She had sat beside me when my mother died, and I could not cry until 3 days later, when I found a grocery list in my mom's handwriting. She had never given me a reason to doubt her. But doubt is not a door that swings open all at once. It is a draft. You feel it at your ankles first. She changed the passcode on her phone. She said one of her students had seen her type the old one, and she felt weird about it. Fine. Then she started stepping onto the balcony when certain calls came in, even in the cold, wrapping her cardigan tight while she spoke low enough that I could hear tone but not words. One Saturday morning, I checked our bank app while drinking coffee and saw a cash withdrawal for $480. When I asked, she said I had to help with something. With what? With something I can't explain yet. Yet. That word did more damage than she knew. At dinner, she would look at me like she wanted to speak, then ask if I wanted more rice. Her spoon clicked against her bowl too many times. My own answers got shorter. The radio filled the kitchen more and more, because neither of us wanted to admit how loud the quiet had become. Then, one night, her phone lit up beside the sink while she was rinsing plates. I did not pick it up. I only looked because it was there, and because I had already become someone I did not like. The message preview said, "He asked if Marcus still has the coin." She grabbed the phone and turned it over. "What coin?" I asked. Her hand tightened around the dish towel. "Marcus," she said softly. That was all, my name spoken like she was reaching for me from across water. I wanted to ask. I wanted to be brave enough to say, "Tell me everything before I imagine worse." Instead, I said, "I have an early call tomorrow and went to bed before 10. I did not sleep." Men like me pretend silence is restraint, but sometimes it is just cowardice with better posture. The night I followed her, I had been called to a downtown office building where an elevator kept stopping 6 inches below the lobby floor. A small misalignment, easy fix. By the time I left, the rain had softened the whole city into reflections. I was driving home when I saw Elena's blue Corolla 2 cars ahead of me. At first, that felt like a gift. I would pull up beside her at a light, smile, make some stupid joke about traffic, and whatever had been growing between us would shrink back to normal size. Then she missed the turn for the community center. My hands tightened on the wheel. She kept going toward the station district, past the tire shop and warehouses that looked asleep. I followed from half a block back, hating myself with every turn. I told myself there were lines I would not cross. But that night I learned how easily a man can stand near a line and still feel clean because he has not stepped over the exact part he named. She parked beside Millie's Diner, a squat little place with chrome trim and a neon sign that buzzed like a trapped insect. I pulled in across the street near a busted meter and killed my lights. A man was already waiting inside. He was thin, older, maybe late 60s, with gray hair combed back and a brown coat too light for the weather. He sat hunched over a coffee cup, both hands wrapped around it as if it might keep him from disappearing. Elena slid into the booth across from him. He pushed a yellow envelope toward her. She did not open it right away. She just looked at him for a long time. Then she reached across the table and covered his hand. That was when my chest went cold. I sat in my truck with the engine off, listening to the rain tick against the roof. Through the glass, their mouths moved. The waitress came by, poured coffee, left. Elena took cash from her purse and laid it on the table. The man shook his head once. She pushed it closer. He covered his face with one hand. I should have left. I should have gone home and waited. But pain has a curiosity of its own. When a customer stepped out of the diner, the little bell over the door rang, and for a few seconds their voices carried through the wet air. Elena said, "I can't keep this from him much longer." The man answered, "If he hates me, I deserve it." Then he said, quieter but clear enough, "Thank you, sweetheart, sweetheart." It is strange how one word can take 11 years and fold them into something sharp. I opened my truck door and stepped out without knowing what I meant to do. My keys slipped from my hand and fell into a shallow puddle by the curb. I stared at them there, silver teeth under brown water, while a bus groaned past and blocked my view of the diner. By the time it cleared, Elena was leaning toward him, listening, her face tender in a way I had not seen directed at me in months. The man said something about the blue lunchbox, but I was already grabbing my keys, already getting back into the truck, already deciding I had seen enough to ruin myself. At home, I set the evidence on the kitchen table like a small, pathetic trial. The Greyhound receipt, the bank withdrawal on my phone, a photocopy receipt I had found in the trash, the old penny from my toolbox, though I did not remember taking it out until it was lying there under the yellow kitchen light. I made coffee and forgot to turn off the burner. By the time Elena came in, the apartment smelled burnt and bitter. She stopped in the doorway. Her scarf was damp. She looked at the table, then at me, and everything in her face seemed to understand before I said a word. "How long?" I asked. She closed the door carefully behind her, as if a hard sound might break us. Marcus, how long? It's not what you think. I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Because those words are what people say in movies right before it is exactly what you think. Then tell me what it is. She did not answer quickly enough. That silence did more than any confession could have. It walked around the room touching everything we had built. I stood up. The chair legs scraped the floor. I watched you with him. Her eyes closed. I watched you give him money. I watched him hold your hand. I heard him call you sweetheart. He's not. Don't. My voice was low, which scared me more than shouting would have. Do not make me stand here and beg for a truth you should have handed me yourself. Her mouth trembled. She took off her scarf with both hands, folded it once, then seemed to forget what she was doing with it. I was trying to protect you, she said. That made me angrier than anything else. From what? Looking stupid? Being the last person in my own marriage to know what's happening? From him. The rooms changed. Not enough for me to understand. Just enough that the anger lost its footing. Elena walked to the cabinet where we kept batteries, tape, and tax folders. From the bottom drawer, behind a stack of envelopes, she pulled out the yellow envelope I had seen at Millie's. She placed it on the table between us. For a second, I could not touch it. My name was written across the front in handwriting I did not recognize and somehow did. Marcus Vale, not Mark, not Mr. Vale. Marcus, the way school forms said it, the way my mother said it when she was trying not to cry. Elena sat across from me. He came to the center 3 weeks ago. Who? But I already knew. My body knew before my mind would allow it. Victor, she said. Your father. The coffee pot clicked behind me. Somewhere upstairs, our neighbor laughed at a television show. Ordinary life continued with cruel confidence. I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, letters, photocopies of old documents, and a smaller envelope sealed so many years ago that the glue had browned at the edges. The first photo slid out face up. I was 7, maybe 8, wearing a pirate's cap too large for my head, holding a blue lunchbox with one hand and missing 2 front teeth. I sat down because my knees had made the decision for me. Lena spoke gently, but not softly enough to let me hide from the words. He came in asking if anyone could help him find you. He said he saw my last name on a flyer for the GED program. Vale, he asked around. Someone told him I was married to a Marcus Vale. He didn't know if it was you. I stared at the picture. My father must have taken it. I remembered that day in pieces. Grape soda, school bus doors folding open, my father kneeling to fix the latch on the lunchbox while my mother told him we were running late. He wanted me to give you the envelope, she said. I told him I couldn't just hand your life back to you like a package. So you met him in secret. Yes, and gave him our money. I paid for 2 nights at a motel and a bus ticket. He was sleeping near the station. A hard part of me wanted that to matter more. Wanted to accuse her of choosing the man who left over the man who stayed. But the photo of the boy with the lunchbox was on the table, and that boy was looking up at me with a trust I no longer remembered owning. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Elena wiped under one eye with her knuckle. Because every time his name came near a room, you left it. Because when your aunt mentioned him at your mother's funeral, you drove for 2 hours. Because you once told me if he showed up at our door, you'd rather talk to the landlord. I said a lot of things. I know. She looked at the envelope, and I should have trusted you to handle your own pain. But he looked so small, Marcus. Not harmless, not innocent, just smaller than the monster in your head. I wanted to know if he was here to take something from you before I let him near you. And was he? She shook her head. He didn't ask for money. I offered that. He didn't ask to move in or be forgiven. He said he had no right to ask anything, but he wanted you to know leaving was his failure, not yours. I looked at the penny on the table, the old coin I had carried like proof of a wound. He asked if I still had it. I said, yes. My throat tightened until it hurt. He doesn't get to remember small things and pretend that makes up for the big thing. No, Elena said. He doesn't. That answer, simple and firm, cracked something in me. Because she was not defending him. She was not asking me to forgive him. She was sitting across from me with red eyes, admitting she had made a mess because she loved me badly for a few weeks and did not know how to love me better. I wanted to forgive her immediately. I also wanted to walk out and keep walking until the city ran out of streets. So I did the only thing I could do. I took the penny, put it in my coat pocket, and left. Pittsburgh at night has a way of making loneliness look industrial. I drove without deciding where to go and ended up at an overlook where you could see the rivers come together like old arguments. I sat in the truck with the heater clicking, the penny pressed into my palm so hard it left a circle in my skin. When I was 12, I waited on the porch every evening for almost 2 months. I did not tell my mother I was waiting. She already looked like she had been holding up the ceiling all day. I just sat on the top step with my homework on my knees, listening for my father's work boots on the sidewalk. Every car sounded possible until it passed. After a while, hope became embarrassing. Then it became childish. Then it became anger because anger at least stood upright. I had built a life out of being the man who did not leave. I paid bills early. I kept spare light bulbs. I answered calls at 3 in the morning because somebody stuck in an elevator needed a calm voice. I loved Elena by staying. But I had never noticed how often I made her prove she would stay too. A late text from a student and I got quiet. A hard week between us and I braced for abandonment like a weather report. My silence was not peace. It was a locked room with me inside, daring her to find the key. She should have told me. That remained true. I should have asked before I sentenced her. That was true too. At a gas station near the highway, I bought coffee from a machine that spat more steam than liquid and looked at the man reflected in the dark window. 42 years old, grease under one thumbnail, rain in his hair, still waiting on a porch in some corner of himself. When I came home, Elena was sitting at the kitchen table in the same sweater, the yellow envelope still in front of her. She looked up like she had been listening for my truck the way I had once listened for footsteps. I filled the kettle, not because tea fixes anything, because my hands needed a task gentle enough not to become an argument. I put a chipped mug in front of her and sat down. "I thought you were having an affair," I said. She nodded. "I know. I hated myself for thinking it." "Then I hated you for making it possible." "I know that too." The kettle ticked as it cooled. I pushed the penny across the table to her. "I carried that thing for 30 years and never told you how heavy it was." She touched it with one finger but did not take it. "I'm sorry I tried to manage your pain without you. I'm sorry I turned you into the enemy before I asked a real question." She breathed out slowly, and for the first time in weeks, the silence did not feel armed. We talked until the sky behind the brick wall outside our kitchen window began to lighten. Not the way people talk in movies, with perfect sentences and clean revelations. We repeated ourselves. We got defensive. We apologized and then explained too much. She told me Victor always ordered coffee and never finished it, and that he cried when Elena told him my mother had died 3 years earlier. I hated that he cried. I hated that I cared. Elena showed me the receipts. Motel. Bus ticket. Copies of old letters he had never sent because, in his words, cowardice had a way of sounding reasonable when you practiced it long enough. She did not ask me to meet him. She said she would make sure he left town if that was what I wanted. That should have felt powerful. It didn't. It felt like being handed the steering wheel of a car I had been pretending was not moving. "I'll meet him," I said finally. Elena's eyes filled again. "You don't have to." "I know." I looked at the envelope. "I'm not promising forgiveness. I wouldn't ask that. And I don't want you at the table." She flinched a little, then nodded. "I mean," I said softer, "I need it to be mine if I go." "I'll wait in the car," she said. The next morning, Millie's looked smaller in daylight. The chrome was scratched. The windows were clean enough to show me my own face before I pushed open the door. The bell rang, bright and ordinary. Victor Vale sat in the same back booth. For a second, I saw him as two men at once. The father from old photographs, broad-shouldered and laughing, and the man in front of me, thin gray hands trembling around a coffee cup. Time had not punished him enough. That was my first thought, and I am not proud of it. He stood when he saw me. Marcus. I hated the sound of my name in his mouth. I also wanted him to say it again. I sat across from him. Through the window, I could see Elena's Corolla in the lot. She was behind the wheel, both hands around a paper cup, looking straight ahead. She did not wave. She did not try to make the moment hers. Victor lowered himself back into the booth. "You look like your mother," he said. "Don't start with that." He nodded. "Okay." The waitress came. I ordered coffee I did not want. Victor waited until she left before speaking again. "I'm not here to explain it away." "Good. I left because I was weak," he said. "Because I owed money, because I was ashamed, because every mistake I made looked bigger when I came home and saw you and your mother trying to believe in me. None of that is an excuse. It's just the truth with the decorations taken off." I stared at him. He swallowed. "I told myself you'd be better without me. That was a lie I used because it made leaving sound almost noble. You were not better without a father. I was just too much of a coward to face the damage I'd already done." The coffee arrived. I wrapped both hands around the mug because I needed somewhere to put them. He slid a stack of envelopes across the table. Different sizes, different years, my name on everyone. I wrote, I didn't send them. Some years because I didn't know where you were. Most years because I did and lost my nerve. That's convenient. "Yes," he said. It was. I wanted him to fight back. I wanted him to say something selfish so I could stand up and leave with clean anger. Instead, he sat there and took the weight of what he had done without asking me to help carry it. He pointed once, not touching the top envelope. "There's a picture in there of your blue lunchbox. The latch broke on the left side. You were mad because you thought kids would laugh. I fixed it badly. You told me it was good as new anyway. My jaw tightened. I remembered things, he said. I just didn't do the thing that mattered. Outside, a bus sighed at the curb. Inside, someone laughed near the counter. The world had the nerve to continue. I opened my mouth, and for a moment I was 12, then 20, then 30, then every age I had been without him. I can't call you Dad today, I said. Victor's eyes shone, but he did not reach for me. I understand. I don't know if I'll ever call you that. I understand that too. I looked down at the envelopes. But I can sit here for 10 more minutes. He put a hand over his mouth and nodded once. So we sat. Not healed, not fixed, not even close, but seated across from each other in a diner with cold eggs on his plate and bad coffee between us, letting 10 minutes become something neither of us deserved and both of us had to survive. When I walked back to the car, Elena unlocked the passenger door without looking at me. I got in. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she asked, "Are you okay?" I watched Victor through the diner window. He had not moved. He sat with his head bowed over the envelopes I had left on the table except for one. "No," I said. She nodded. I reached across the console and took her hand. "But I'm here. A few weeks have passed since then." That sounds too neat, like time is a broom that knows what to sweep away. It isn't. Some mornings I still wake up angry at a man who is now only 20 minutes away by bus. Some nights Elena and I still stumble around the bruise her secrecy left between us. Trust does not return like a dog when you call it. We are learning to say things before they harden. Elena tells me when Victor calls. I tell her when I am not ready to hear about it. She has stopped protecting me from information, and I have stopped mistaking questions for weakness. We are not perfect at it. Last Tuesday, I got quiet over dinner after she mentioned a second meeting, and she set her fork down and said, "Don't go behind the wall, Marcus. Just tell me." I almost snapped. Then I told her I was scared that if I let him matter, he could hurt me twice. She reached across the table and said, "Then we'll name that. We won't bury it." I read the first letter on a Sunday morning while Elena fixed the old radio. She sat cross-legged on the floor, brow furrowed, turning the tiny dial until a station came through in a wash of static and old soul music. The letter was dated 4 months after he left. It did not ask forgiveness, did not deserve it. But in the third paragraph, Victor wrote that he had seen a boy at a bus stop wearing a pirate's cap and had to sit down on a curb because, for one breath, he thought it was me. I folded the letter and stared at the wall for a long time. Elena did not ask what it said. She only slid a cup of coffee onto the table beside me, the way you leave a light on for someone trying to find his way back. The yellow envelope still sits on our kitchen shelf. It does not scare me the way it did. The penny is no longer in my toolbox. I put it in a small frame beside the radio, not because my father earned a place there, and not because the past has been made gentle. It hasn't. I put it there because hidden things grow teeth. Now, when morning light comes through our one small window and catches that old coin behind glass, I see the boy who waited, the man who misunderstood, the woman who made a painful mistake trying to love him, and the truth that finally sat down at our table. Love is not guessing correctly in the dark. It is asking, even when the answer may hurt. It is staying in the room long enough to hear the whole story. And sometimes, if you are lucky, it is a chipped mug, a repaired radio, a yellow envelope, and a coin left out where both of you can see it.